The panel will be discussed by Mr. Najib Saab, the Secretary General of AFID, the Arab Forum for Economic Development, Environment Development, not economic. And I will give the floor to Najib. Please, can you introduce your panelists? Or you want me to introduce them?
No, I don't. Okay, good morning. Thank you, Faraj. As you have read, this panel is about working towards water cooperation to ensure a sustainable water future for arid regions. And the most arid region in the world is this Arab region. So that's why most of the panelists on this panel are from the Arab region, and the only one not from this region works in the region. First, we ask, is it relevant subject to talk about water scarcity here? It is the most relevant. To the extent, you know, my organization, Arab Forum for Environment and Development, AFID, we produce annual report on the state of Arab environment. This year, it was about food security, and we shall present it on Thursday here in a 2-hour morning session in this hall. But we found that the water situation is so dangerous in this region, so dangerous, that we have created a new category other than the World Bank categories. The World Bank, they have 500 liters and less per capita per year. It is the worst category. We have created one because in this region, we have 13 countries with per capita water per year less than 100 cubic meters, not 500. So we are in real danger. We have real scarcity. Now, this panel will discuss the situation, and we have people from different specialties. We have His Excellency, Dr. Mahmoud Abu Zaid. Dr. Mahmoud Abu Zaid is the president of the Arab Water Council based in Cairo. Dr. Abu Zaid was Minister of Water and Irrigation in Egypt. We have with us also Dr. Faraj Al-Awar, and I'm starting left and right to mix. Dr. Awar is the program manager of the Global Water Operators Partnership Alliance, which is under the United Nations Habitat. And his program is based in Spain. We have with us also Dr. Muhammad Al-Madfa'i. Dr. Madfa'i is Executive Director of Integrated Environment Policy and Planning Sector at the Environment Agency Abu Dhabi. And as you know, Abu Dhabi, they have issued last year and they started implementing a water and agriculture strategy. And one thing very important, they stopped using water for fodder. So you cannot grow fodder now in UAE, which was a very big step. We have also Mr. Matthew Griffith. He is Director of Water Strategy and Water Reuse at the Regulation and Supervision Bureau in Abu Dhabi. And last but not least, we have Dr. Khalid Abu Zaid. Dr. Abu Zaid is the Regional Water Program Manager at SIDARI, and SIDARI is the Center for Environment and Development for the Arab region and Europe. We shall start with a round from everyone around this panel to give us his general view from his own experience and perspective in 2 minutes, about how do you see the problem of water and how can cooperation help to solve water scarcity issues in arid regions. So I start with Dr. Mahmoud Abu Zaid. I mean, if you like to talk there, it's okay. But to save time, I suggest we stay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be part of this panel. As a matter of fact, the previous session did deal with the challenges and opportunities in the region. But it's so clear now that many of the countries of the MENA region or the Arab region started to face severe water scarcity conditions. Several factors are contributing to this danger. Among the most important are population growth, misuse and water losses, as well as environmental and climatic change impact. A nexus approach comprising water, energy, and food is needed to help climate mitigation measures be more water smart and adaptation measures to be less energy intensive. Over the last several years, important advances have been made in national and international cooperation for the development and improvement of water resources management. However, in spite of the efforts undertaken, significant challenges still remain. Ladies and gentlemen, it is hence evident that there is a dire need for urgent, innovative, and revolutionary technologies and smart solutions if we are keen to ensure a sustainable water future. Examples of these technologies include a program on the use of remote sensing in water management. Some remote sensing applications include crop mapping and irrigation, drought monitoring, flood mapping, evapotranspiration, climatic change analysis. Towards improving water sustainability, more examples of innovative technologies and strategies strategy programs include: one, innovative desalination technologies, and the main solutions include membrane desalination, brine treatment leading to zero liquid discharge, reverse osmosis, desalination using renewable energies like solar and wind, nuclear desalination. Second, thermal, and we've heard about this previously, thermal desalination technologies. The main solutions include multi-stage desalination within cogeneration and corrosion and scale control solutions, including nanotechnology. Third, innovative technologies for wastewater treatment and reclamation. Membrane processes for municipal wastewater treatment, chemical, physical, biological treatment of industrial wastewater and reuse, etc. Four, brackish groundwater and drainage water use as an innovative, non-conventional water resource. Brackish water for irrigation is practiced in several countries in the region with the aim of turning low-quality water into resource. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, there are two ways to embrace the future. We can either passively let the future happen, or alternatively, we can actively shape the future. So unless we cooperate and wisely plan for the use of a resource, water will soon become a serious constraint to the development of many of our nations. Thank you.
Dr. Awar, we know that your program is active in the Middle East. Can you give us an idea of the work you are doing here, and is it helping countries to cooperate, operators of water?
Thank you very much. Thanks, Najib, for the introduction and for the question, actually. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm heading a global program called the Global Water Operator Partnerships Alliance, or Global WAPS Alliance. And the WAPS, or what we call WAPS, are simply utilities helping each other to enhance their performance so that they can extend their services to poor sectors of the society. And we've been initiated since 2008, and we've been active basically all over the global south, and including this region. And in this region, we have been connecting water utilities to exchange experience and expertise about common problems. Common problems that, they have been mentioned several times this morning, actually. They revolve around resource scarcity and the need for resource efficiency. And utilities have been cooperating between them to enhance this efficiency. For example, between Morocco and Palestine, between Tunisia and Egypt. And also, in addition to that, we've been working on getting support, north-south support, to the region as well, in addition to the intra-regional support that has been happening in the region. Now, I'd like also to mention that there is a lot of potential for scaling up this cooperation in the region. One can naturally talk about technology transfer, for example, between GCC and non-GCC countries. One can talk also about enhancing exchange between the non-GCC countries themselves. And we have champion utilities in this region, especially in North Africa, who are doing very well. The Moroccans and the Tunisians, I'm sure you know about them, that they are doing very well. So we are trying to scale up our program in the region in cooperation with regional institutions, both UN and non-UN institutions, like UNESCO, for example, like we are already in talks with the Abu Dhabi Environment Agency to cooperate on that. So hopefully this cooperation program will be scaled up in the future.
Okay, thanks, Faraj. I shall come back to you to ask about public-private partnerships, because in this region in general, those services are carried out most by public bodies. We have very successful private companies now which are very active, like Aqua Power in water and energy. So we shall come back to this about private operators. But now I would like to know from Mr. Griffith about one point. I mean, you are in a regulating bureau and your job covers reuse of water. In our region, in the Arab region, only 48% of the wastewater is treated. But the sad story is not this. In most countries, no more than 9% of the treated water is reused. Maybe the Gulf country, UAE, is one of the best of reusing wastewater. From your perspective, can you talk about your work concentrating on this issue, wastewater reuse?
Sure, yeah, thank you for the introduction. So I work for the Regulation and Supervision Bureau, and we're the independent regulator for the water, wastewater and electricity sector here in Abu Dhabi, Emirate. I've put some thoughts together on speaking from behalf of a regulator, and it won't surprise you what I wanted to talk about focuses on protecting customers, the importance of strong policy, sector organisation, good quality data, and closing the loop in the water sector here. So exactly this. We invest a lot of money in treating wastewater, and we've got to reuse it. And when thinking of a sustainable future for the region, we've got to look at supply and demand. What water resources are available? Where are they physically, and at what quality are they? We've got to match the quality of the supply with the demand and the use, and that's where wastewater reuse comes in. Key to all this, of course, is good quality data, good quality sampling data, good quality metering, knowing about volumes, measuring quality. Strong policy then becomes key. There's a lot of competing demands on the different water resources, agricultural policy, industrial policy, the real estate sector. And any shifts in policy in any one of those sectors needs to be considered in a more holistic picture. And key, we've got to protect the customers, make sure that the customers, the public, have sufficient access to good quality drinking water, and exactly as you mentioned, sanitation. Assuming all these policies are aligned, we've then got to look at the sector players, who's involved in the sector, the regulators, the operating companies, and make sure their roles and remits are aligned to join up all the thinking and make sure we can complete the water cycle and capture and reuse wastewater. We've got to look at opportunities for integration of the water supplies, and when I look at Abu Dhabi, we've got three key water resources. There's groundwater, there's desalinated water, and what we call here recycled water, which is the treated wastewater produced from the sewage treatment process. We invest a lot of money in Abu Dhabi in treating this to a high quality, so we've got to capture it and we've got to reuse it. And again, when we look across the region, really the majority of water is used in irrigation, and we've got to be very careful that we're matching the quality needs of that use with the water that's available. Where we're using precious, high-quality desalinated water for irrigation, we've got to ask ourselves, is there an opportunity to open up the market for reuse? And what sort of practices and procedures do we need in place to achieve that? How do we build quality in this as a resource? So then we start to look at the end users, the people that are using the water, and have they got the tools and the knowledge to use water efficiently? Can they make the wise choices? Are the education awareness programs in place? Are the appropriate technologies in place? Are the appropriate operational practices being used to get the best value out of every drop of the water? And do people understand the true cost and value of the water and the importance of using it wisely? So coming back to a regulator's perspective, what have we got in our toolkit and what have we developed to help promote some of these issues? And on the wastewater side, we've introduced regulations to promote reuse of recycled water and biosolids. It's a regulatory framework that we developed bespoke for the Emirate, and as you would expect, it includes quality standards, but it also includes some of the roles and responsibilities throughout the value chain to try and bridge some of the issues that I mentioned earlier about who does what, and to try and address some of these interface issues. In parallel to that, we've also developed some trade effluent control regulations as the industrial sector grows and more exotic chemicals are being discharged to the sewer. We need to be on top of that and control it to protect the valuable products that come out of the back end of wastewater treatment plants. We do price controls as well for the network companies that operate in the Emirate, and we can use incentives there to promote reuse, promote demand-side management. And finally, in Abu Dhabi, we've launched a WaterWise office, and this office could be considered the friendly face of the regulator, so to reach out to consumers, gather data on how water's used, do pilot studies, find out the opportunities for saving water, and also open the market for reuse of wastewater. In terms of wider Middle East cooperation, I think it's all about communication, sharing good practice, building confidence in issues such as wastewater reuse, learning lessons, both good and bad, so sharing data and being transparent with the lessons that we learned, And finally, of course, platforms like this are great occasions for sharing this information and experience. So the International Water Summit's a great platform for sharing practices like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll go to Dr. Khalid Abu Zaid. Khalid, you are Regional Manager of Water Program of a regional organization. Its name is international, but actually it is concerned in the Arab region. What are your experiences, and you are a water expert yourself, in regional cooperation in water? Can we dream of such a thing? Because you have many comparative advantages in the region. Do we have to insist on growing things in regions which you cannot do it in a natural way, instead of cooperating in the region like European Union, instead of dreaming of one Arab nation, dreaming of one Arab Union, economic union?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Najib, for your introduction. I think there's a big potential, of course, for regional cooperation in the Arab region, whether we call it cooperation or integration, as the water challenges in the region are immense. One of the cooperation activities that we worked on, and it is related a little bit to the availability of information and assessing the trends and developments in the water sector in the Arab region, is developing what we call the Arab State of the Water Report. And the Arab State of the Water Report, which is produced by SEDARI and the Arab Water Council, and also the countries in the region, the ministries in charge of water in the region, is looking at the water sector through specific predefined indicators. Indicators such as water and climate, water and trade, water and economics, water and health, different categories of indicators. And some of the important results that we found, I may want to share with you, that reflect the challenge of the water sector in the region. The Arab countries, if you look at the internal water resources in the Arab countries and compare it to the per capita threshold of water scarcity of 1,000 cubic meter per capita per share, you find that 3 countries out of the 22 countries are only above that level. The situation is a little better when you look at external water resources that comes into the region. The region depends on external water resources in the amount of about 65% of the renewable water resources in the region comes from outside. And therefore, it is very critical to address the water sustainability issue in the region from that perspective. And it also is related to water security, not just sustainability. And it is actually an issue of water energy nexus at its best, because what may be an energy development and hydropower development and agriculture development in an upstream river, for the Arab region, it may be affecting the sustainability of the water sector and of the energy sector and the hydropower sector in the downstream. So it's a very important issue to address. Now, the situation is a little better if you look at the available non-conventional water resources. The available non-conventional water resources in the region, which includes the use of desalination or the wastewater reuse, the agricultural drainage reuse. You are looking at about 8% of the available renewable water resources could come from non-conventional water resources. You're looking at about 34 billion cubic meters of water, of agricultural drainage water in the region. You're looking at about 24 billion cubic meters of industrial and municipal wastewater. Only 4 billion out of this 24 is used. And if you look at the agricultural drainage, only about 6 billion out of the 34 is being reused. Now, if you look at also the energy water nexus issue, and especially the energy for water that is being used through desalination or treatment or pumping or transportation, and you want to be more water efficient, you're actually going to use more energy to be more water efficient. So we need to also look at these issues when we're addressing this challenge. The other challenge is about the depletion of fossil, non-renewable groundwater in the region. This is now in the neighborhood of about 24 billion cubic meters per year. The Water Sustainability Index, as we've assessed in that report, is looking at about 10 countries out of the 22 countries have already exceeded their 100% threshold of, according to the Water Sustainability Index, of using the available renewable water resources. This groundwater is of very good quality, this fossil non-renewable groundwater, which is good for bottling. And unfortunately, it may be used for the wrong purpose, or it may be used in a non-rational way. Now, talking about virtual water import and the agricultural production, the region is importing virtual water in terms of agricultural production, agricultural products and food, about 274 billion cubic meters per year. If you compare that to what is produced locally, we're looking at 212 billion cubic meters per year. So you're importing in the region virtual water in terms of food and agricultural products that is even more than what is produced internally. So this should be addressed properly when we're looking at strategies and policies for the future. The last challenge is just about the climate change, which I want to address. And we're looking at extreme events. We've seen snow, or hail, or rain that has been in the Emirates yesterday. This is a new phenomenon, and this is what we call the extreme events are being that you're witnessing. We've seen also flooding in the region. A lot of floods that needs flood control, and also making use of this flood water in Saudi Arabia and in many other areas. So these are some of the challenges that we need cooperation and transfer of technology and knowledge in addressing. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalid, for the very good overview. I would like now to ask Dr. Madfai about the water and agriculture strategy of Abu Dhabi. Last year in this conference, that strategy was launched. I want to know, within 1 year, where did you reach? What can you report to us about this, the implementation of this strategy or the acceptance of this strategy?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum.
And just, sorry to remind you, like the other sessions, you can post the questions on your systems. And then we shall see them here and use them.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today to speak in this panel. Our leadership has put water security on top of its agenda in the UAE as well as in the GCC. In 2012, during the GCC summit in Abu Dhabi, there was the Abu Dhabi Declaration, which was with regards to water, and there was 15 key principles that have been put in this Abu Dhabi Declaration. To address these key principles, a unified GCC water strategy is being developed, and it is expected to be completed by the end of this year. And I think this is a very great example on how regional cooperation is when developing a unified water strategy. As said by Dr. Faraj earlier, and as you mentioned, we have launched our water strategy in Abu Dhabi. And it is also a great example on how cooperation is done with cross entities, since 9 key entities in Abu Dhabi have been involved in developing this Abu Dhabi water strategy. Today, Her Excellency, the Secretary General Razan Al-Mubarak, mentioned in her opening remarks that we are proposing the adoption of a water budget to align water usage with a sustainable supply. Also, we have been actively developing the right infrastructure and governance structure to meet with our targets for the full use of our recycled water. This complemented on extensive work to reduce water abstraction, groundwater abstraction actually, reduce network losses, as well as decrease desalinated water consumption from utility to the customers. We are looking to achieve 3 main targets by 2030. First of all is the full usage of our recycled water, reducing the groundwater abstraction by 60%, and the reduction of the unaccounted for water to around 10%. As well as reducing the per capita water consumption from 600 liters, around 600 liters per person per day in Abu Dhabi, to less than 340 liters per person per day. You mentioned earlier some of the things, of course, that we are achieving or working towards in the Abu Dhabi water strategy. You mentioned one. We stopped the subsidies on the Rhodes grass, which is the animal fodder, and this tremendously saved a lot of groundwater abstraction we have in Abu Dhabi by around 40%. We are developing a crop calculator, as the Secretary General mentioned, and we are looking to balance agricultural production with the water usage. As you may be aware, that agriculture is the largest consumer of water in Abu Dhabi, and it is around 50% of our water usage. And it is only responsible to 1% of our GDP, and only 15% of the fruits and vegetables available in the local market. Of course, groundwater, we are looking to increase groundwater, the agricultural sector, because it is part of our food security, but at the same time to use water more sustainably. So this is why a crop calculator is needed. We are looking into groundwater meters in farms, and the Abu Dhabi Food Control Authority has already piloted 200 farms to measure the consumption of groundwater in the farms. And at the same time, from an Environment Agency perspective, we are looking to reduce water consumption in the forests by 80% by 2030. And this is through the elimination of invasive species, non-native species, and at the same time, increasing the efficiency of our groundwater usage and introduction of treated water. So these are some of the things that we are doing in Abu Dhabi and addressing the Abu Dhabi water strategy.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you.
I mean, actually, of our whole discussion, we found out that what everybody knows, that water in this region is scarce. There is more hope to find more oil than to find more water, or the water which is possible to be found in the region is known to be there. Oil, when it depletes, it is good now. We have solar energy, wind energy, but until now, nobody found replacement for water. The result is that we have to live with what we have. So it seems the only way is to be more efficient. And we have a long way to go there, and some are easy issues. Irrigation. I mean, in the region, we use up to 85% of the renewable fresh water for irrigation. Efficiency in 19 countries of the region, out of the 22, is less than 46%. So if we increase it to the world average, we can save billions of tons of water. I mean, there are simple methods. Individual use is very high, but everybody was shy in the morning session and now, but now we shall talk about it. To talk about one thing, is it possible to use water more efficiently, whether in irrigation or at individual level in this region, as long as subsidies are that high, as people get it nearly for free? In the past, we used to talk about pricing water services. The Saudi minister, Dr. Hussein, told me, I mean, stop using this term of pricing water services. Say pricing water. So, I mean, as long as we don't price water or water services at reasonable level, can we dream of having water efficiency in irrigation or in individual use? Dr. Mahmoud Abu Zaid, you were Minister of Water. Can you just give us a glimpse on this?
Of course, the experiences in many of the Arab countries show that but the use of improved water practices have shown in Egypt and in many of the Asian countries that you can bring up this to 60 or 70%.
Sure.
Which means, as you said, save a lot of water and produce more. Besides, of course, improving the efficiency, we should not overlook the possibilities of improving water productivity.
Yeah.
So we can produce more with less water. So I believe many countries have already launched a program of improving water efficiency, both on the farm level and on the system level.
Are we doing enough to share experiences in the region? We know that Egypt has high productivity. It increased a lot. Sudan is one of the lowest in the world. I mean, Egypt and Sudan, historically, they are the Nile Valley, one region, one south. I mean, do we have any type of cooperation? This session is about cooperation. To share, how can we better share our experiences? I would ask Faraj, I mean, you work for a UN organization. How can those countries share experiences? And let's have fast answers to allow everybody to talk.
Yeah, Najib, you mentioned the word dream twice so far. I mean, about cooperation. Can we dream about cooperation? It's not a dream. Cooperation is happening in the region. Cooperation, I mean, at least at the utility level, which I'm working on. I mean, look at what happened since the establishment of the Arab Countries Water Utilities Association, for example, in 2007. The utilities have been sharing experience and expertise about their common challenges. And the example that was shown by Dr. Madfai about the development process even of the water strategy in Abu Dhabi and UAE, it showed cooperation between 9 different public institutions within a country. And a few years ago, we wouldn't dream about that. Now it is happening. So there is a progress over here, both within cooperation, in cooperation, both within countries and among countries in the region. Now, you mentioned also that you wanted to dwell on the public-private partnerships in the region, and I'd like to respond to you about that. Public-private partnerships have been working in some places and have been not working in some other places. But in places where they are working, public-private partnerships are working together with good regulation, which protects the consumer, as my colleague said over here, regarding quality and regarding affordability. And this is a real prerequisite for public-private partnerships. And it has been working in the region over here, especially in GCC countries. But please bear in mind that in the GCC countries, there is no poverty issue, like in non-GCC countries. While in our countries, like the country that you and I come from, in Lebanon, there was some not very good experiences because in public-private partnerships. So anyway, they work, definitely, but they need regulation. And in our program, we don't discriminate between public and private utilities. We call on them to participate both, but on non-profit basis in these water operator partnerships, so that these partnerships are based on solidarity and collegiality between peers.
I have two questions from the floor, and they happen to be to Dr. Madfai. So please answer fast. One question is policy question, but just, how can we achieve transfer of technology among GCC countries and between GCC countries and other countries in the region?
I think before we talk about that, we need to talk about the data availability and accuracy, which is very key for any sound decision making. So in order to promote the right policies and the right incentives and the right الجو العام, the right atmosphere for regional cooperation, the data availability and accuracy should be there. So without that, I think there will be a big challenge to develop any policies.
Other question I decided that Matthew can answer. It's also from the floor. Does the Emirate of Abu Dhabi have any declared initiative or mandatory water efficiency target? Is there a mandatory water efficiency target in Abu Dhabi?
Well, I think Dr. Madfai shared what was declared in the water strategy.
Did it become
it's
mandatory?
No, it's not mandatory. Those are it's goals and aspirations as the Emirate works towards its 2030 development plan. And going back to the point of cooperation, one of the 9, it was mentioned 9 entities in Abu Dhabi contributing to the strategy, and we, the RSB, were one of the 9, and it's a great example of what can be achieved, but a lot of legwork has to go into it, even in Abu Dhabi, to join up the thinking of different agencies, different sectors. As I mentioned, agriculture versus industrial growth versus real estate development, all very competing demands and challenges on water. So a lot of work to be done on a local level. And then when you start to look across the region, what about ideas such as pooling research and development, sharing data, sharing technologies? There's a lot of common contractors and consultants that work throughout the region. And the other thing to remember, everyone loves to see new technologies trialled in their own backyard. So again, perhaps more openness about that, where new technologies have been trialled, where the pilot plants and pilot projects are in practice. Perhaps we could share better across the region and build confidence in efficiency measures.
I mean, we talk in this session about arid regions. And I want to pose a question which is a little bit controversial, but it's okay. Now, Israel, which occupied part of our region, is now prominent in providing technical assistance, mainly in African countries, is the most prominent in this field for agriculture, for growing in arid lands. I mean, they have the experience from land which they occupied, Arab land they occupied. They used it to get experience. They are good in the field. They are giving support with international money to African countries in this field. I want to know from Dr. Abu Zaid, do we have in the Arab countries good research centers of a standard which can provide such technical assistance to Arab countries and to African countries?
I believe so. We have many examples in many of the Arab countries of good institutions, research institutions which can provide research facilities, research possibilities, training, and proper appropriate.
But are they proving that they can use them locally? I know in many countries they have big research centers with big budgets, and then they have a problem in the country, and then the last one who talks about it is that research center. While if we look in the records, we find that they spent millions on research in that field, But when it becomes to practice, they can't provide the practical solution.
Many of the national and regional institutions in the Arab world do provide experience to African countries and other developing countries in terms of training, conferences, workshops. So we do have quite a lot of experience from Egypt. The Arab World Council does provide this experience to some of the Arab countries and to some of the African countries too. The capabilities are there, and I believe the experiences also do exist in our region to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I want to raise is the issue of population. Population in some parts of this region, we have very high percentage of expatriates, reaching 90, 92, 95%. They are needed to achieve certain growth levels which were set. Now, when we talk about water scarcity, those countries have to provide water and food, but mainly water for all those people because you cannot import water. Can we plan water, to manage water, without planning at the same time in an integral manner the whole development with population and population mix, etc.? Muhammad?
I think, we have to be realistic with ourselves. That what is the populations we can sustain in our region and have a sustainable water consumption as well. So this is something that needs to be discussed at a regional level. What is the optimal population that we can sustain? At the same time, I think adopting a water budget is very important as well when it comes to balancing your water demand with your water supply as well. So these two things, first of all, we need to know how much we can sustain in this region, since we are now in around 30, 40 million, and we are expected to go to about 50 million by 2050. And at the same time, the water budget. The water budget is very important to allocate the water and use it efficiently. At the same time, innovation is needed as well, since my colleague Fatma Al-Foura mentioned that the UAE government has announced 2015 as the year of innovation. So innovating in technologies to make water usage as efficient, to be used as efficient as possible, is very important. So it's a mixture of...
yeah. Okay, I mean, just also to mention something when we talk about regional cooperation, cooperation and research is very important, because in many cases you have research done in one country which is unknown to another country, and sometimes inside the country itself you have research done which does not reach the users who can apply it in a practical manner. So this is very important issue also. Now we shall end with fast remarks from the panel, and I shall start this time from is this right? Yes. Right to left. Faraj, and try to have it, because Faraj, who is the chairman of the conference, he said you have 5 minutes. So we have here 5 persons, 5 minutes, 1 minute.
Yeah, thanks, Najib, for helping me with the time, especially. Something that we didn't discuss, and I'd like to throw as an idea here, a big challenge in the region is investment. The investment needs that are really high in the water sector in the region. Of course, I'm not talking about the GCC countries, but about the non-GCC countries. And investment needs will need a lot of regional cooperation to be realized within the whole region. So I hope that with the progress of cooperation, that is being started now in the region within the water sector development is to realize the investment needs in the near future. Thank you.
You know, we can talk as policymakers for a long time. However, the key factor for success is society. Society being consumers or business. And we strongly believe that water conservation is a national duty and everybody should be responsible conserving water, either as a consumer at home or as a business as part of their corporate social responsibility. The governments can just set the policies and the right incentives to make it a successful environment. However, it is the duty of the people and ourselves to make sure that we ensure a sustainable water future for future generations.
Sorry, I want to interfere here. Yes, what's needed is policies, but policies, when we put a target, it should be mandatory. This is policy. Yes. And when we put a target, it should be attached with fiscal measures because people just feel their pocket. So when we want to, Matthew.
Yeah, just building on that, what Dr. Mohammed said, really strong leadership with a clear vision of alignment of policies. So we understand the hierarchy of agriculture, industry, real estate, and supported by good data, whether that's measuring and monitoring from within the sector, R&D, research, and use that good data then to constantly refresh, revise the policies, and set clear targets for everyone to work towards.
Khaled.
Yes, I think that we should give very importance to water governance, which starts from having an integrated water resources management plan or strategy with at least a 15-year time span. And under that, we should give also importance to enforcement and the right regulations. If we need to change the legislations, the regulations, the urban development codes to enforce having water-saving devices and water conservation techniques. Also to make sure that we have proper water accounting, what you cannot you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So it's very important to know how much is being used and where. And also to adopt a policy of using the right water resource for the appropriate use at the suitable location. Where in one place you could be using fossil groundwater for bottling and for municipal use, but the resulting wastewater could be used for agriculture and so forth. So we need to adopt these measures.
Dr. Mahmoud.
Yes, thank you. I do hope that this session on water sustainability, especially in our region, will contribute in searching for a consensus on the appropriate intervention and actions to update national policies, legislation, and institutions to guide the preparation of water resources development programs and the integrated plan, and to promote the use of sustainable management practices to meet the growing water demand in the area.
Thank you. Now we have still 2 minutes left. I have one question here. Do you agree for using treated wastewater for drinking for humans, while a human being consumes only 2 liters per day, so it's not worth it? So the one who asked this question, although Bill Gates last week, you saw him drinking water from a waste treatment plant, you can drink it, but nobody is asking to drink this water. I give you one example. Let's start with other things. Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. The gardens in Riyadh, the street plants, are irrigated with desalinated water. Do you know why? Because the network which reaches Riyadh is desalinated, while the wastewater treatment plants are outside the city and they don't have still networks to bring the treated water to Riyadh. So let's start with these things, certainly. We can start, until you have more cultural acceptance, you can start irrigating at least ornamental plants, trees. Certainly, water treated in Kuwait, most of it, reverse osmosis. So imagine the waste, treating water by reverse osmosis, which is good for drinking, but a lot of it is thrown in the desert. It's not even used for irrigation. So let's use it at least for irrigation. Now, the final remark of this session, we found out, okay, the water which we have is limited. We cannot discover more water in this region. So what is the solution? 85% of it is used for irrigation. We have to have more efficiency in irrigation. That's number one. Better productivity of crops, as we are using it for irrigation, most of it. And then we need regional cooperation. And regional cooperation means also cooperation with our neighboring African countries, not only with the 22 Arab countries. And yesterday, Dr. Abu Zaid reminded me that since Abdel Nasser died, cooperation between Egypt and African countries nearly stopped. They forgot about it. So just we need cooperation in this region, not only Arab, especially with our African neighbors, and cooperation not only to distribute water, but mainly in technology, because the main source of new water now is efficiency and better crop productivity. Thank you all. Thank you, panelists, and let's just thank you all. And thank you all delegates for your very good questions. I used most of them one way or another. And then I remind you, on Thursday at 9, we are presenting in this hall the AFED report on food security in the Arab region with the editors of the report.